cross-country skiing, overt racism, and Nazi pride. We're not talking about the 1936 Olympics. This is Battlefield 5. Battlefield 5 is a 2018 World War II multiplayer online first-person shooter. It was developed by DICE and published by Electronic Arts. Battlefield 5 is actually the 16th game in the Battlefield series. It's number 5, but it's really number 16. Honestly, Battlefield has been my favorite military franchise for a long time because I think it's just a bit more realistic. It does a lot of things that the other guys don't do, and you don't have to deal with as much cheese. DICE and EA are both talking about how they made a lot of changes to the game to give it a more visceral feel, to make it more realistic than it was before, and to make it more team-oriented. They also say that they've added a lot of customization, ongoing goals, unlocks, and things to keep you motivated to keep playing the game. But with all these changes, has the game been made better? Or has it seen a decline in quality, especially due to the games as a service model? And to sweeten the deal, Battlefield 5 even has a single-player campaign, something its competition does not have. As you guys know, when I talk about games, I talk about the good, the bad, then I give you my score. That being said, let's start with single-player goodness. There are 4 distinct single-player campaigns and a prologue. The prologue is called My Country Calling. It introduces all of the mechanics, the vehicles, and the theaters of war you'll see throughout the single-player game. Terriers was the first single-player campaign mission that I played. It follows colonized Senegalese soldiers brought from their homeland to fight for the French in the forested countryside. The thing is, they get sidelined and put into support roles due to the fact that they are black. But they volunteered for combat, they fought hard, and they proved to others that they were equally worthy soldiers and human beings. This is based off of actual events, but what's sad is these Senegalese soldiers didn't receive recognition until 2017, until nearly all of them were dead, which is truly pathetic. Terrier's missions basically has you in the confines of a claustrophobic forest. The next single-player mission I played was Under No Flag. This follows a special boat service recruit and his unit after he makes a deal to serve in exchange for release from prison and a pardon upon completing his mission in North Africa. Under No Flag is a more varied and wide-open map, which kind of lets you select which missions you're going to take on first. Again, this is based off of a real program that the Brits had, except it wasn't just criminals, they also had soldiers in their unit. The third mission I played was Nordlies. This follows a young female commando through occupied Norway. You'll basically spend most of your time sneaking and skiing through wooded countryside and wide open spaces. This one is inspired by an actual elite Norwegian commando unit who were successful in stopping the Reich's weapons of mass destruction development. The last mission I played, which was the newest mission added after release, was the Last Tiger. This follows a Nazi tank crew trying to halt the Allied advance. With the Reich crumbling around them, they start to question their actions, the things that they've done, and the reasons behind the war. This level has you guiding a Tiger tank through a bombed out city and facing ever increasing odds. This one makes a lot of sense to me because in any conflict, soldiers naturally start to question why they are there and what they're doing. And with over 40 assassination attempts on Hitler's life, which included a lot of German soldiers and officers, I mean, what more proof do you need that a lot of German soldiers did not agree with the reason behind the war? When it came to the single-player campaigns, I felt like there was a great variety of environments and possible playstyles on display. You get intense vehicle combat, you get huge open battles, and then you get 2 missions that can be done with stealth or balls to the wall run and gun. The fact that there is a single-player campaign at all is great, and I think it's pretty sad that I have to commend a military shooter for having a single-player campaign. I like how these short, snappy single-player missions get you involved in these lesser-known campaigns of World War II while easing you into the mechanics of the game itself. I think telling these lesser-known stories of World War II is admirable. The sense of scale and immersion will really depend on which campaign you are playing. Sometimes it's all-out chaos, and other times it's quiet, intimate, one-on-one killing. During the entirety of the single-player campaign, through all 4 missions, I never had any frame rate issues at all, which is pretty impressive because the graphics for the most part are really gorgeous. Honestly, I think this is the best sound design I've ever heard in a military shooter and a first-person shooter, period. Whomever did the sound design absolutely deserves an award and a bonus. I really love the enemy screams and the reactions of hit soldiers. They're pretty hilarious, though that's not on purpose. The lighting effects are top notch, with lots of great weather effects to boot. There's great color in the environments, but it's grounded in reality. While playing the single player mission Under No Flag, I experienced the best explosion that I've ever seen and heard in a game, and the best feeling of destruction I've ever had in a single player game. It's so good, I just want to show you real quick. Just check this out. Having the stories told in their native tongues and accents was a nice touch, and it added to the authenticity. There's a great orchestral score that never intrudes on the story and emphasizes key moments. The voice acting and the voiceovers are executed very well. The cutscenes are fun and they add a lot to the experience. There are a few parts of the single player campaign that really stuck out in my mind because they were really exciting or different, like when you're trying to survive the cold in Nordley, so you have to move from fire to keep warm. The stealth killing while skiing through the forest was pretty fun. I really enjoyed the final battle in the Tiger campaign. The second mission, Interiors, which is this huge battlefield, when you come over that hill and you see it, you're really going to be surprised and shocked. Even me, being prior military, I thought, Jesus, I can't imagine being a person and having to go from this side of this battlefield to the other, all while you have tanks and mortar fire and machine guns and soldiers all trying to kill you. And of course, that huge explosion that I mentioned in Under No Flag. So all the single player campaigns have some memorable moments in them. The addition of the shooting range and its exercises really helps you fine-tune your gunplay without people trying to shoot at you, so that's pretty nice. And I think it's cool that you get objectives and scores in the shooting range. It's not just go and shoot at a piece of wood or jump in a tank and blow this thing up. You actually get graded, and you can come back and try to get better and better each time. But the last thing that I really want to say about Battlefield 5's single player campaign is that it actually has one. So that's the single player goodness. Let's talk about the single player badness. While the cutscenes are interesting and they do add to the single player experience and emotional impact, they are hampered by compression artifacts. If you're going to make these really cool cutscenes, why not make them full quality? Don't compress them so bad that they look like a 480 video on YouTube. The stories can be a bit heavy-handed and they have a little bit of stilted writing when it comes to the dialogue. And while I loved having the stories in their native tongue, trying to read the subtitles under fire is impossible. If you stop to read the subtitles in this game, especially if you're playing on the hard skill levels like I was, you're dead. So you miss a lot of the emotional story beats. You don't see a lot of those things. And speaking of those subtitles, who the puts white subtitles with no drop shadow or dark outline on snowy mountains and bright desert sand levels? Same thing with objective markers. If I can't see it, how can I know what's being said or where to go? Don't just put something white over white or tan. Put something white with a drop shadow or a black outline over that so I can see what the hell is going on or read the story. I know I mentioned earlier how I thought, the soldiers' screams and reactions when they are hit was funny, but they weren't meant to be. But the physics of the soldiers being hit is just distracting, and it really takes you out of the game so fast. Even when you're just skiing and throwing a knife at somebody, they might fly 10 feet in the air. You might sneak up behind somebody and stab them in the leg, and they go flying forward. That's obviously not how it should be. Hopefully they'll clean up the physics and the hit reactions in future updates. The enemy AI isn't very bright. Of course, once it's alerted, they'll flank you and they'll shoot at you and throw grenades and stuff, but they're really slow to do it and fairly easy to smoke even on the hardest skill level. There were quite a few clipping issues and weird body disfigurement glitches on the initial build. I lost my suppressed sniper rifle when it just got stuck in a wall. I couldn't do anything about it, it was gone. And I had to do the rest of the level under fire because I couldn't kill anybody quietly because I no longer had a suppressed weapon. With such a heavy reliance on stealth, while realistic to the real world, it doesn't always make fun gameplay. In a game like Thief, sure, but not so much World War II. I honestly feel like the stealth parts were put into the single player campaign, maybe to draw it out and make it a little longer, because I did the same missions like Under No Flag in a plane in about 10% of the time. Instead of going through and stealth killing and stuff like I did the first time, I just jumped into a plane, flew over, and just destroyed all the objectives in just 2 passes. The Under No Flag level, to me, it just felt like a ghetto version of the Dirty Dozen or Inglourious Bastards. While the message and story of Terriers was inspiring, the gameplay was anything but. Shooting down these congested corridors got really old really fast. The stealth didn't make sense for this level, and it didn't work. I just ended up killing a few people with stealth and then going loud and just mowing everybody down and then calling in my players for support. Melee kills don't always work. You might sneak up behind somebody, hit that melee button, and it just like stabs them in the leg. Hopefully you can stab them 1 or 2 more times before they alert somebody, but more often than not, they turn around and they start to shoot you. And like I said, the scope of war is very hit or miss due to the very uneven campaigns. As cool and fun as the Nordlies mission was, it felt really weird doing it as a mother-daughter combo, not because they were females or because they were mother-daughter, but because the actual mission in real life was pulled off by a bunch of commandos. Now I know what happened on the actual mission wouldn't have translated into fun gameplay because it was a bloodless mission. It was so successful they didn't have to kill anybody, but maybe they could have found a happy medium, something in the middle. The Last Tiger had these really weird moments where your tank gets hung up on a piece of concrete, but then it'll drive like right over a car or whatever with no problem. More variety in the campaign mechanics would have been great. The first mission was just get from here to there, and the second mission was take out these 3 checkpoints, and the third mission was usually some big momentous thing that you had to accomplish. Change it up, add some variety like Titanfall 2 did, or Dishonored 2. The always online requirement is total bullshit. I got no credit for the thing I did when I played Under No Flag offline, and technically I wasn't even offline. I was online, but my Xbox Live had just expired and I didn't realize it. So when I renewed my Xbox Live and relaunched Battlefield 5, you would think that it would then sync up and show that I accomplished those things in that mission, but it didn't. Why do I have to be online at all for a single player campaign? While the single player graphics were pretty gorgeous, there were a few times where I noticed some ugly textures that were just straight ugly as especially when I was low crawling into certain places and there was some shadow in the area. It just looked really choppy, really ugly. It looked like PS2 stuff. So they had Mark Strong come in and do the single player campaign's prologue.
In the moment he sees him as a fellow man, he's no longer a good soldier. And I was a good soldier.
But they didn't have him do anything else, which was really weird. I guess maybe to save money. But having the developers do the voiceover for the tutorials was a little bit jarring and distracting.
You must capture and hold the objectives. These are identified as flags on the map.
At first I was like, who the hell is this? I don't recognize this voice. And then it says, oh, it's the lead developer of Battlefield 5 or the developer of multiplayer or whatever it said. Okay, you had to save some money, but maybe put in a little bit of coin and get some voiceover artists next time. And this thing's not really a glitch, but this really pisses me off. This is World War II. This is actual history. You're talking about authenticity and you're talking about the shadow of the swastika falling across Europe. And yet every flag in the game is of the German cross. What the hell is this? This is World War II. Stop perverting history because you want to stay politically correct. The fact that the game was missing its 4th campaign mission upon launch is real bullshit. They should have put it out at launch. If it wasn't ready, then they should have waited a few weeks, added it to the single player campaign, and then put the game out. And down the line, giving you more weapons, more modes, more levels, not parts of the game that should have been included in the first place. That's not added value, that's just bullshit. To be honest, the games as a service model, like I said, is broken, it's ruining the industry, and it ruined the launch of this game. With the single player campaign out of the way, let's talk about what keeps everyone coming back to the Battlefield series, the multiplayer. Let's start with the multiplayer goodness. So there's a good variety of maps in the multiplayer. There's 9 in total, everything from these frantic nighttime airborne raids in the snow to these more quiet battles in sunlit flowery fields. Destructible buildings are back for the most part, and they're great for rooting out campers while adding to the realism of what an actual battle could be like. If you've got a bunch of guys hiding in a shack, just drive a tank right over it, kill them, and crush the shack so nobody can hide there anymore. Speaking of vehicles, the variety of them in Battlefield 5 is pretty awesome. In one mission, you can be in an aircraft doing airstrikes or bombing objectives. Then you can be in an anti-aircraft gun taking down enemy aircraft, maybe one of the ones that was bothering you and maybe it shot you down. Well, now you can get payback. Then you can drive a tank right into one of those objectives that you were trying to help lock down from the air, start mowing down the other team, and then you can win that match. The attrition system is fantastic. When you are on a balanced squad that works together and communicates like a medic, a support, and 2 assault, or maybe an assault and a recon, you can do serious damage and last for a long while together. And the unique attributes of each class are great and make each feel very different, and they help aid one another, and that's what's important and what works about the attrition system. Building fortifications can be done by everyone and make a big difference in the infantry heavy modes. Support soldiers though can build them in half the time, and they get a bit more points than the other people do. Support players can also resupply their teammates with more magazines or drop an ammo crate which everyone can jump in and take ammo out of. Medics can actually do the same with health packs or health pack crates. The recon class can mark enemy soldiers via a spotting scope and let the rest of their squad or team know where the bad guys are. The assault class uses heavy weapons to counter enemy armor and heavy mounted weapons like cannons. And what's really cool is if you're working together as a squad and you achieve a lot together, then your squad leader can call in reinforcements. The reinforcements include rockets, resupplies, and vehicles depending on how many points your squad has earned. To make the different classes even more fun to play, there are specializations that can be locked for each class and each vehicle. Of course, they vary in how big a difference they make. Some don't make much of a change at all, but the vehicle unlocks and specialties can be a huge game changer, especially when you're facing off against those who don't have those unlocks of the same vehicle, or vice versa. Even when I was playing on multiplayer and I had this frantic battle going on around me and people were shooting at me, sometimes there were these storms that came in or these different particle effects. Sometimes there was really nice lighting through the windows of a building, and I just had to stop and appreciate it for a second. Sure, I got shot in the face, but man, they did a really great job with the graphics. And like I said earlier, even on my console, which is an Xbox One X, the frame rates were rock solid. I never had any stutter, I never had any slowdown. Even when there were a ton of players on the screen and stuff blowing up, the gunplay feels kick-ass. It's very loud, it's punchy, and after some locks, you can really control the guns a lot better. The balancing between the weapons and the vehicles and all that kind of stuff is pretty fair for the most part, but really, you're going to have somebody on your team that's assault so they can use their rockets to take out those tanks or those cannons. And unlike its competition, I actually had no issues getting online to play games. Once I figured out how the servers worked, I never had a problem finding a match, and every time I want to join one, it has not been an issue. And what's really cool about the servers is the fact that you can create a custom filter to find specific regions or specific game types. For me, since I'm a guitar and there's no local servers, I always looked for games in Germany because that's the closest solid ping that I could find. As you play the different modes, you'll get a feel for what you prefer, and then you can use those preferences in your filters. Gameplay variety and satisfaction really depend on the mode type and the map that you're playing, like sprinting through bombed out alleys or holding down a checkpoint in a little village feel really different, and that's a good thing. When you and the team that you're opposing finish in a stalemate, you're going to go into what's called Final Stand. This mode is super fun. It doesn't really make sense for World War II, but it is kick-ass. The map basically shrinks, and as you kill a person, they're out. So it's basically sudden death, and I think it gives you a feel for what their Firestorm mode might be, or at least different facets of it. So Final Stand actually has me really looking forward to Firestorm when it releases. Jumping onto a map in ground operations as a paratrooper is a real blast. It's a great feeling when you land, take an explosive, plant it, and destroy an objective. And that's important because what you do in that first level basically sets the tone for the rest of the mission. If you guys go in and you take out all those different objectives, then when you start the next round, you have more respawns. So you're at an advantage. If you don't, then the other team's at an advantage. It's a really cool dynamic. The customizable cosmetics are a nice touch. They really help your soldier, weapon, or vehicle stand out. You'll unlock them as you play and you earn in-game currency. The newly added Tides of War has some really fun objectives to earn and cool unlocks. When you finish these objectives, you'll get experience points. Plus, when you finish unlocking all the parts of that tier, you'll get a special weapon or a special piece of armor. When I finished the first tier, I got a light machine gun, which I have been using like crazy because it's really sick. It does serious damage when you deploy it properly. I like the fact that you can spawn onto your squad. It's pretty convenient, especially if they're in a tank. Then you spawn into that turret on top, and then you can start laying down suppressing fire so that they can use that cannon to take out buildings, and then you guys can go in and take that objective. Another thing I really like about the multiplayer is the match is not over until it's over. You might only have 2 or 3 tickets, 2 or 3 lives on your team left, but if you take those final objectives, you win that match. The fact that you have to take ballistics into account is a nice touch. It makes the game feel more realistic, so if you're shooting a submachine gun and you're trying to shoot somebody way across the level, good luck. Even if you're using a sniper rifle and you're shooting somebody across the level, you have to take into account how far they are, what range you have the weapon zeroed on. The destruction animations and the animations in general look amazing. Again, they really add to the realism and the chaos of the battlefield. And the last thing that I want to say that I love about Battlefield 5 is the fact that all content coming out in the future is going to be free for the people who own the game. That's right, every weapon, every vehicle, every mode, every level that comes out is going to be yours for free if you already purchased the game. So if you get the game on sale, scoop it up, and then everything else that happens after that is yours as well. No season passes, none of that bullshit. That's what I thought about the multiplayer goodness. Now, let's talk about the multiplayer badness. I think these are the worst load times I've seen in a multiplayer mode that I've ever played. Even when you finish a match and you're quitting to go back to the menu so that you can use your customizations and stuff, it might take a minute, 2 minutes, sometimes longer. Sometimes it gets to the point where you're not sure if it froze up or not, so you restart the game just to go back to that main menu. The user interface just sucks. It is so clunky and it requires so many steps to do things. It's very, very time consuming because the interface is so garbage. Some of the audio indicators really need improvement. Audio for some things like enemy footsteps don't make a sound, or they fade in and out sometimes, so you won't hear anybody coming up on you. I had at one point like 4 people come up behind me and I didn't hear one of them, and I had my 3D headset on. And when it comes to visual indicators, like I said earlier, everything is white. So you might be in a bright snow, someone throws a grenade at you, and then you won't see it until it flashes red, and by then it's usually too late. They really need to fix the audio and visual indicators ASAP. I love the fact that you get these unlockable cosmetics and camos and all that stuff, but they don't change depending on the mission map. You might be wearing a camo that has red and green, and then you go to a snow level. Well, guess what? It didn't change to like a blue and white pattern of that. It stayed red and green. So now you stick out like a sore thumb, so you're gonna get smoked. All the cosmetics, all the camos should be dynamic. When you go from a snow map to a desert map to a forest map, they should change colors. You shouldn't have to do that manually, especially when you have several pieces. Speaking of, when you change characters, say you want your player to look different, or you want it to be a female or a male or whatever, and you switch to that other selection, you now have to go back and re-customize every part of your gear. It shouldn't be that way. It should stay the same way, and if you want to change it, then you change it. Some people think the time to kill is unfair, or it's too fast, or whatever. I think the time to kill feels alright, but it seems like the time to death is really inconsistent. Sometimes you get hit 3 or 4 bullets, but they don't indicate until all at once. So it's almost like you got one shot even though it didn't happen. I thought I might be tripping, but then I asked a bunch of my friends about it and they said they feel the same thing, and I guess DICE is actually looking into this now. Not being able to change your weapon attachments or your camo or anything while in those missions or even in between missions is real bullshit. All you can do is change your classes and that's it. And that's pretty inconvenient, especially when some of these matches can take 40 minutes to an hour. And while I think the attrition system is awesome, it does solve a lot of issues from before when it comes to teamwork and to camping and all that kind of stuff. It has created some new issues. You'll see people playing medics and support a lot just so they have unlimited health or ammo, and you'll know this because they'll ignore your request for either of those things. They'll just run right past you and keep going on with whatever they're doing, and that even includes your squad members. Like I said, squads can be great, but more often than not, they lead to frustration when players don't carry out their roles, when they don't play the f***ing objective, they don't communicate. Squads can be a real pain in the ass. I would have liked to have seen some of these more well-known battles and regions mixed in with this game and these lesser-known campaigns. I know World War II just came out last year, so maybe they were trying to differentiate themselves, but still, I think they should have thrown some in there just for variety. Hopefully, with the future content, they'll throw them in there, but I guess we'll find out. Now, the spawns can be problematic in this game. No, nothing near as problematic as, say, Black Ops. Especially when you can choose, where you're going to spawn, if you're going to spawn in a vehicle, if you're going to spawn with your squad, if you're going to spawn in an objective that you've already taken. There's a lot of stuff that you can choose to help make your spawning easier. Well, I do love the customization and the unlocks and all that cool stuff that you can get with the in-game currency. It takes forever to get in-game currency. They are so stingy with this in-game currency, it's pathetic. And the cosmetics are so expensive. One face paint smudge, like one little black smear of paint on your face, costs as much as 5 or 6 weapon upgrades. That's some bullshit. The in-game economy is broken and they need to fix it ASAP. It needs to be rebalanced. Even normal unlocks and goals can take too long, especially when they rely on your squad and your teammates to help, like when you have to drop ammo or health crates and people have to pick up a certain amount. I've been trying to get people to pick up 400 health for like 20 matches. It's taking me forever and I'm still at like 350. I don't like the stuff where you're dependent upon other people. Let me do the myself. If I need to revive 40 people in one match, I can do that. I have to try really hard, but I can do it. While the build that I played was really solid, the release version of the multiplayer my friends were on was buggy as shit. I defo believe them because I've seen a ton of clips of all kinds of issues. I still encounter some of these issues, but it's nothing like it was upon launch. DICE definitely should have delayed a few weeks at least, but I'm sure EA's stupid ass pushed for this idiocy. I mean, EA, Electronic Arts, actually won the worst company in the world 2 years in a row. They're famous for killing their developers with dumb requests and decisions, like launching the fantastic Titanfall 2 between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty. That was really dumb, and it killed that game. That's still one of the best games I've ever played, and most of my friends haven't played it, and that's really frustrating. EA really sucks. And speaking of, the marketing for this game was really crappy. I mean, if they wanted to do something with, all the different genders and the crazy stuff like the samurai swords and the hook arms and stuff, do it. But don't try to say you're doing a serious World War II game. Instead, come out with something really fun and different. Make it like an alternate reality shooter. I myself would have enjoyed a katana or a hook arm to set myself apart in multiplayer. It would have been interesting, and it would have been something different to look at. As much as I love building fortifications and stuff as support, it's frustrating when it is not an infantry-based mode because tanks or rockets can take out those fortifications pretty quick. So all they really do is create a bit of a speed bump or change the flow of a map a little bit. Speaking of fortifications, you might have an area locked down, which will for sure lead to a win, only to have an over-enthusiastic teammate come through and ruin that spot that you have with a fortification. I had the bridge locked down. No one could move forward. They didn't know where I was, and I was killing tons and tons of people. And then this guy came over, threw down sandbags in front of me, blocked my view, and everyone surged forward. They took the bridge, and we lost that game. All because of this one dude with his sandbags. So sure, do fortifications, but be smart about them. And while I love that map Twisted Steel, which most everyone else does, that's everybody's favorite map pretty much, the map rotations in this game are garbage. You get stuck playing the same maps over and over, and the fact that you can't vote on which maps you play next and you're stuck with what's given. I still haven't even played that newest 9th map yet because I never get that far in the rotation. It looks great. I see it in video, I see it in pictures, and all the time that I've been playing this game, I haven't tried that map once because I can never get to it. Speaking of maps, there are no bad maps. There are a couple great maps, some good maps, and some mediocre. There's nothing bad, but some of them have different pros and cons. Your playstyle preference really will dictate how you feel about each. And even a great map can be spoiled by little things, like a lot of times squad leaders forget to call in reinforcements, which is annoying because they're basically wasting all of your efforts. Final Stand is really awesome. I love the fact that you go into this sudden death and the map closes in on you almost like PUBG or something. Yes, it doesn't fit quite with World War II. It's awesome. It's really fun. It's really different. It's a cool experience. But the issue is, I've only done it once. And most of my other friends haven't got to do it any times at all. And the reason that happens is because the team that's losing actually gets a bonus, a bump, and they get to come back faster and even the game out. So a lot of times, even though they were getting their ass handed to them, they end up winning because of this rubber band catch-up system that DICE implemented, in which they say that they're now working on balancing more. Why even put that in the first place? If a team's losing because they're not doing good, so be it. This isn't a racing game. And one of those other small things that really annoys me, no matter how good the map is the missions, no matter how varied they are, the maps, the modes, whatever, they get really repetitive. It's always lock down objective A, lock down objective B, destroy objective A, destroy objective B. It's the same thing over and over. So I'm excited for when Firestorm comes out because it'll be something different. There's still more variety here than in Black Ops or these other military games, but you have to actually go out of your way to find that. You have to jump into an aircraft or a tank or get on a cannon or whatever. There's no variety involved within the gameplay itself. It's all take objectives, hold it down, move on. With a decent single-player campaign divided into 4 missions and a prologue, Battlefield 5 already has a leg up on its competition. The now reworked and much more stable multiplayer has a lot of things to enjoy. You've got all these different modes, you've got a lot of goals that you can meet, you've got unlocks, you've got a lot of customizations. It's really cool and it really helps keep you engaged. 40 vehicles and 27 weapons also add to that enjoyment, but all of the above are kind of cumbersome when it comes to unlocking them and their customization. To be honest, the games as a service model ruined the launch of this game, and it's ruining the industry, and this game is proof of why. Releasing parts of the game piece by piece, especially when you know those parts were already completed to look like it's added value, is a real shit practice. Not only that, the game launched with 1 million bugs in single player and in multiplayer. While the vast majority of these bugs have been fixed or tweaked at least, it is still inexcusable, whether it was EA forcing DICE to do it or not. Had Battlefield 5 launched in the state that it's in now, with a complete 4-part campaign, and the multiplayer much less buggy and much more solid with trackable achievements and unlocks and all the stuff that it has today, I would have given the game a solid 7 out of 10, but because it did not, I'm going to have to give it a, drumroll please, 6 out of 10.